Well, good evening and welcome once again to the LBJ Grasslands. I don't know if you saw the Petzl Swift RL review, but if you did and you suffered through, you made it through long enough, you may actually remember this particular gate right here. We are now headed out to the southeast edge of Cottonwood Lake. You may be able to see in the GoPro there's somebody there across the lake, probably wondering, who is that fool at the other end of the lake? It must be Jim Armstrong. So you might wonder, well, what in the world are we doing out here? What's tonight's exercise? This will be a shorter one than we have run in the past because I'm going to be discussing the use of multicolored lights in night operations, and in fact I'll be covering some of the techniques and information that are discussed in detail in the night operations course for law enforcement. This will be a fairly short exercise compared to the others. Now, the first question I always get is, well, what's the best color of light to use to preserve night vision? There's a lot of information online. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good. Some of it is just, people repeating what they have heard. A lot of people may have read that red light is the best for preserving night vision, and it's pretty good, but that's not actually optimal. As it happens, to preserve your best night vision, you want to enter what's called scotoptic vision. I know that's a technical term, blah blah, babble babble, and I will give you the URL of a website that discusses this in more detail, but optimal preservation of night vision occurs when we have primarily only rod excitation and no cone excitation in the eye. And that happens at a wavelength of about 500 nanometers. Had some stuff going on out here, a lot of grooming. Anyway, that's kind of a blue-green. And so I don't exactly have a headlamp that I can go grab that I can dial into 500 nanometer blue-green light. We will get pretty close tonight with a dedicated blue light that I'm going to show a bit later. However, that range of night vision, or that particular style of vision, scotoptic, comes with some drawbacks, and the primary drawback is loss of acuity. And so if you're interested in both preservation of night vision as well as being able to see good detail, moving to a longer wavelength, something in the 600, 650, the reddish range is probably better. That's why you'll see in the military a lot of soldiers will use low lumen red lights for reading maps, for example. And we'll get a little bit more into red and blue later. The reason I'm moving down the water is I want to start with my first use case, which is for blue light, which I tend to believe is the most versatile. And one of the things I have here is an UltraFire dedicated blue light. I believe it's 470 nanometers, about 250 to 280 yard throw, about 250 lumens approximately. I believe those are the specs. I'm going to turn my headlamp off here pretty soon and go to the dedicated blue, and hopefully it'll show up okay on the GoPro. But in addition to making my way through territory, blue has several other advantages. If I'm in a fog environment, low light and fog, blue light is good for trying to penetrate the fog and minimize the reflection that you get back, kind of black like you have with a yellow filter for a white spotlight will help you illuminate longer distances and reduce some of the reflection you get back off of particulate matter in the air. It's also the case if you're searching around water, which I'm going to do here in just a second, that as you go down in depth, light is absorbed from the longer to the shorter end of the spectrum, so blue light is preserved more. Now, as I get here to the edge, I got my headlamp on medium reactive, and of course it's dimming the light as I get some of that reflection. You can see pretty much with, you know, about a 300 to 500 lumen lamp what we can see right there. So let's take this light, turn it off. I'll go to high reactive first. There's high. See, you know, we can see some things, but as you get out further and further, it's tougher to see things with the reflection. So now I'm going to turn this off. We're going to go to the dedicated blue. Now I do get some problems with this hotspot, but particularly when I go off at distance here and that hotspot isn't so bad, it may not show up in the GoPro, but I can actually see down deeper into the water than I can with the white light. Now I don't know if this will make it all the way across where that campfire and that light is over there. That's about 300 yards. I can't tell if I'm really illuminating that. Now I am getting the edge here. I don't know if this will show up in the GoPro. But that's pretty much what it looks like. Blue is also good for illuminating blood trails. Of course, now nothing beats UV, but blue is pretty good for that, so hunters will use it. There are animals who have more trouble seeing blue light than white, so hunters tend to prefer blue. You know, a pretty solid blue is good for providing some illumination. I mean, I can see just as well as I did with my headlamp on medium reactive, but if I take this out of play immediately and I look up at the stars, I mean, of course you can't see this on the GoPro, but I mean, it looks pretty fantastic. So you might be wondering, okay, well, you know, what about green? You said blue-green was optimal for preservation of night vision. You know, what does pure green light look like? Okay, well, I've got a couple options to show that here. One of which is this Princeton Tec Vizz Tactical headlamp. I actually have this headlamp attached to the front of my chest rig. Now I'm pretty sure you can't see that at all. Let me move the GoPro down just a bit. That's 40 lumen green right there. And then I can bring another light out here, which is an old Nightcore SRT9, and this is adding another 40 lumen of green. So you can see that that isn't a lot of light, but it's also not bringing out a lot of detail. So I tend not to use green. That's what the 40 lumen blue looks like on the Princeton Tec. I've still got the GoPro aiming towards the ground. This is what I'll use a lot if I'm trying to make my way through territory in a fairly bright moonlit night. You can see I've got this oriented right down at the ground, and I mean, even now I have no moonlight, minimal starlight, and yet I can see pretty well right in front of me. So let me move the GoPro back up. There we go. Get that light off. Bring the other blue back in. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to head back over here and pick up the trail. And then I'm going to go up and down the trail, and I want to show you what kind of a dedicated red and dedicated blue look like, and I'll check back in when I meet up with the trail. Okay, I've moved back to the top of the hill. You can see the sign for Little Cottonwood Lake there. If I turn around, this is the red trail. And so what I'm going to do is take this for a few hundred yards, and we'll start by using this dedicated blue light. It's an UltraFire, by the way. Don't remember if I mentioned that. I probably did not. Now, if you look up, you'll see most of what we have here. You have a few evergreens, but most of this is just kind of dull brown. Everything is kind of this light tan color. And so what I want to do is contrast what this looks like with the two different styles of light. So we're going to start out with this pretty high illumination dedicated blue, and then I have a Phoenix TK22UE. I have both red and blue filters for that. I'll turn on the red light on the way back, and then you can contrast how red and blue look like for the same area. Let's get this on high reactive before we start. So this will give you a good idea of what things look like with white lighting. And now we're going to switch this off and go to dedicated blue. And that's, of course, what it looks like with no light. Ah, here we go. So again, I've got this pretty substantial hot spot with this dedicated light. I'd actually prefer something a little bit toned down, but I did promise to do an evaluation of this light, and I mean, certainly for illuminating at distance, it's very good. I can get, fairly good detail. Everything kind of has, of course, that bluish hue to it. But one thing I'm noticing, like when I'm looking at the comm towers in the background there, everything back there, looks like I can pick up so much more detail than I would, let's say, if I was using the Swift RL in high reactive mode. And so, particularly if I'm in a situation where I have to ingress, miles before I even get to a search location, I tend to want to use one of these colored lights at a lower lumen setting, and that way I'm not burning my primary searchlights. But you see, you can get more than enough detail here to preserve footing. That's what it looks like with a pretty high lumen dedicated blue. Like I said, I'm going to go a few hundred yards down this path, and I will be back once there's something a bit more interesting to look at. Okay, well, here we are moving up a very slight incline. You see there's nothing much of interest out here. This is what the blue light looks up like against an evergreen. You kind of get that blue-green vibe going. And so, as a dedicated light, other than the fact that it's handheld, I don't remember if you remember, the Petzl Swift RL review. This is that path that you go down to get to the edge of the lake. And I mean, I've got good visibility down to the edge of the tree line there, even though this is only about a 250 lumen light. But you can see it's mostly a spot. I'd actually like something that was more adjustable between spot and flood, but for downrange, it's actually very good. I mean, I'm getting excellent visibility of the dirt, of rocks, things that I might trip on. mean, it's a little weird if you've never done this before. I mean, most people are used to using white lights only. And getting some reflection here. Let's see, what do we have? People tied something reflective up there. Okay, well, I guess another 100, 200 yards, and then we'll turn around and switch to red. Well, I guess we kind of reached the end of this particular experiment. I did talk about UV, so one of the things I want to show you real quick is, well, like, what do I do for UV? I rarely ever use UV. If I am following a blood trail, you know, we suspect that somebody was injured and the blood trail might lead us there, I can generally get where I want it to go with a blue light. So for ultraviolet, since I'm a ground-based asset, everything I have to carry with me, and ounces are pound, pounds are pain, I don't know if you can see here, I use this little pen light. And so I just want to kind of show you what this is like. We'll go, and hopefully you can see that. I mean, it's just enough. I can get about 10, maybe 12 yards out of it. I have no idea if this is going to show up in the GoPro at all. I just wanted to show that. And I'm going to switch to red, and then we're going to turn back around. Okay, we are back on white light. I wanted to show you what the surroundings here are like. And we're about to go to red. This will be a little bit lower to start out with. This is actually a red filter attached to my Phoenix light, which I'm currently running in medium mode. I'll start out in medium, and then I will move to high. So let's turn the white light off, and there's red in medium. First thing you'll notice looking at that tree is that it doesn't look quite as green. You know, we had that blue-green vibe going on with the blue light. Well, red and green are complementary colors, and so what happens is this green tends to get a bit washed out. Now, I just put it up into high, and you can see again we can see a pretty substantial way in front of us, and there's good detail there, but in some respects for this really kind of drab type of ground, I tend to prefer blue, although at distance I think we get better detail out of red. And then of course you can see the greens don't come out as well as they do in the evergreen trees. Of course, I could pump this up into turbo, which is the full 1600 lumens. This is also pretty much a spot, so it's very comparable to that UltraFire handheld. I tend to prefer the filters on the Phoenix. You can see how far we can see out there. I mean, very good detail at distance. That's what I tend to like about red. And so I might try to get by with the lowest blue I can get by with if I'm kind of, let's say, ingressing into a search location, or I'm in a situation where I'm trying to ingress and set up a night vision observation station. I might use blue there. We still got that camper way across the edge of the lake. We have another over to our left as well. But if I'm actually searching, and I'm trying to stay relatively low light, you know, really take advantage of all the natural light that's out, you can see I really kind of like this red. It doesn't overwhelm at distance, and I can get good detail. Sometimes, though, if you're searching in a situation where, you know, there's really bright green, the red and green can tend to cancel out a bit. So if you're searching for, you know, let's say a bad guy who's wearing earth tone colors, red is not necessarily the best. Okay, we made it back to, that's where people hung up those reflective items. I think they show up even better on the red. That's what it is looking back into the tree. So, you know, on medium and high, this thing will last pretty much as long as my feet will. And so again, it provides a good alternative to the primary headlamp. So I'm going to continue on back to where I started, and then we'll wrap up. So I've gotten off the trail now. I'm headed across open territory. Moving back to my truck, you can probably see the reflection of the lights. So you can see we have this area where things drop off here. Let's take that UltraFire one last time, see if we can make it easily across open territory all the way back to the truck. And this actually turned out to be a much better light than I thought it would be. For something I got, I think, for less than 30 bucks on Amazon, I thought it was going to be a piece of junk. And I'll probably have to stop here and take a second that I was absolutely wrong. I do wish it had more control between spot and flood. Sometimes the spot is just a bit too much. I'll probably do a longevity test at some point to see what I get out of the battery. But, you know, even if it's only a few hours, I mean, like I said, if I had to ingress somewhere that was miles in territory before I even started my primary search, I could definitely use this and avoid having to, you know, burn the battery on any of my primary lights. I mean, this is not good footing at all. Very easy to make my way across. Now you can see at distance, I still don't think I get as good detail at distance as the red, but just from a general standpoint, I really tend to like blue, and I use blue the most often. So there is the truck. After the truck comes coffee. I think you know how that works by now. I hope you got a little bit of useful information. Again, these are things we go into in great detail with a lot more extensive exercises in the night operations training for law enforcement. But I hope no matter what your application is that you got some useful information. And thank you for sticking to the end of the video. Okay, so one little bonus, I'm out here at the road, FS 904, and this cuts right by the lake. I've got my 40 lumen blue on from the Princeton Tec headlamps. You can see why, particularly if I'm going across a very groomed area. I know this is real hard to see on the GoPro. Let me angle the GoPro down just a bit. You know, if I'm on a very groomed surface, kind of like this concrete or dirt road type of color, you know, this 40 lumen blue does a great job. I mean, I could, you know, come over here and, you know, even get off road, and I've still got very good visibility. So there are a lot of situations that even this little, you know, 40 lumen headlamp light is just fine. Turn back around here, and you can probably barely see the truck. I don't know if you could see the, move the GoPro back up. That's not exactly cinematic, is it? You can see the other camper there across the lake. Here's the truck. So that'll give you just one more look at that 40 lumen blue off the Princeton Tec.